So thanks everyone for coming today. Hopefully you can see my main screen to our webinar on fast tracking your workforce analytics with Visier. My name is Peter Forbes. I'll be your MC and co-presenter today along with Ben Lamb. Just a couple of housekeeping items before we start. You can hear us, but we can't hear you. But if you've got any questions, feel free at any time to pop them into the little question bar, and myself or Ben will look at that and try and answer your question. We'll have some time for questions at the end of the webinar as well. As I mentioned, my name is Peter Forbes. I'm the Managing Director of Navigo. Today I'll be emceeing and introducing Visier and just talking a little bit why Visier is a new breed of business intelligence tool and why it's different to what's out there in the market and what it can do for you. Also joining me today is Ben Lamb, who will take you through the actual Visier product. Hi, Ben. Ben is a product advocate at Navigo in our sales team. Ben has over 10 years experience in HR systems, first cutting his teeth on the Oracle-based HR payroll product known as Alesco. He spent a number of years working in HR departments, building HR reports, so he's very knowledgeable on the challenges HR and payroll have with producing information and producing reports, but then also getting some insights from that people data. So Navigo, we're proud to announce our partnership with Visier, which is a next generation workforce analytics workforce planning tool built to be deployed in the cloud. Just a little bit of background on Visier. Visier is a relatively new company. They were established in 2010 by John Schwartz, who was the former CEO of Business Objects and a member of the SAP board. Their Chief Technology Officer is Ryan Wong, who was the Chief Architect and Lead Engineer for the Business Objects BI platform, and they got acquired by SAP. So what these guys basically did is they started with a clean sheet of paper and leveraging off the team's considerable experience and skill in the workforce analytics and workforce planning space. They started with a clean sheet and using today's technologies and practices, including things like in-memory database, building a better user experience and a user interface. They set about creating a tool that can be picked up quite quickly, and one of the key things is the implementation time. So we'll talk about this throughout the webinar, but Visier's goal is to have you up and going using data in 4 to 6 weeks. And that's a considerable difference over traditional business intelligence and data mart type projects. Today, Visier have over 40 enterprise customers and they're growing fast. So before we get into the actual demo of the product, just wanted to set the scene a little bit. This year, Visier released their second module to their product, which is a workforce planning module, and it really complements workforce analytics. Visier's view of the world is that workforce planning and workforce analytics are really just two sides of the same coin. And I think as products like Visier make it easier for organizations to see inside their workforce and to gain some insight through their lagging data, it will be natural progression for organizations to then start using that historical data for forecasting and planning into the future. And that's what the workforce planning module shows. Today, we're going to be showing you the workforce analytics side. But as we go through, this is a series of webinars we're holding around the workforce analytics space. As we go through, we'll have future webinars on workforce planning. So what sets Visier apart? Let's take a couple of key points as Ben's showing you the product. A couple of points to keep in mind. The first one is that Visier is a workforce analytics application and it's not a tool. And the reason why we like to call it an application is because it's meant to solve your problem. It's not meant just to be a tool that you can query data with, but it's meant to try and draw the answers out for you and give you a lot of the answers. It is a full application because all you need to do with it is bring your data and a web browser, and Visier will do the rest. It is a cloud-based application. You access it via a web browser. You give Visier your data from your multiple data sources on a periodic basis, and they do the rest for you. The idea is to get up and running really quickly, and it's a full service offering from getting your data right through to being able to give you that predictive analytics, to give you some really valuable insight about, what are some of the areas of your workforce that need attention, or you could do something about. The second point is its best practice and in-depth insights out of the box. So with Visier, you don't have to build everything from the ground up. Visier comes loaded with a whole bunch of pre-built metrics that are industry standard. And sure, a lot of organizations may have some unique metrics that are unique to them that we can configure into Visier, but the remaining 80 or 90% of those metrics are standard across the industry. And what Visier does is presents those to you straight away. The other part that Visier does is it tries to provide you with the right questions to ask. And unlike a lot of analytic tools that are great at giving you the answer, but if you don't have the right question, then you're not really getting anywhere. So what Visier really tries to do is present you with the right questions, as well as giving you the answers to those. It also goes a little bit further by using advanced algorithms to find those hidden insights. And part of that is through its predictive capability. The other part of Visier is about the beautiful and intuitive user experience. Visier tries to make it engaging and present information in meaningful ways so that you can easily comprehend that. I won't talk too much about the user experience in the interface. I'll let you be the judge of it when Ben gives you the demonstration. The other part of this is to try and make it fun. It may seem a bit of a silly thing to say when you're talking about make it fun, and it's an enterprise application. But one of the big problems with the analytics is the adoption rate by users, and that can be a huge barrier. So, if you can make these applications more engaging, you'll get a much better adoption and you'll get the results you're looking for. And the final point here is deployed in weeks and not months. So Visier aims for about 4 to 6 weeks to have that first user logging into the system using the product. Most BI tools, you're looking at least 9 to 14 months, and there's a lot of steps with traditional business intelligence tools and data warehouse type projects. Just getting the data out of the system is the first step, but then it's building the queries, building the data mart, the data warehouse, choosing tools and configuring the tools. Visier skips all that and gets you straight up and going. So that's all I wanted to mention at this stage. What I'll do now is I'll hand over to Ben and swap my screen.
For running through everything, and hopefully everyone can see my screen. So yeah, thanks Pete, and hi everyone. So first off, just before we jump into actually playing around with Visier, I just wanted to mention a few of the basics first. So Visier Workforce Analytics is a full-service analytics application delivered in the cloud. Now, what this means is that all you need to have is data and a web browser to be able to look at and create your analytics. It's also really simple to use. So once I start jumping through the screens, you'll see how easy it is to actually create and view your analytics. And it takes very little effort. And most of the functionality is point and shoot. So you mainly only need to use your mouse when you're using the product, which makes it very simple. This means that you don't have to go to IT and wait weeks to actually get your reports. You're actually able to create them yourself as you need them in a very short time frame. So first off, just looking at Visier, I just want to run through some of the different tabs at the top here. So you can see there's a few sections up here. Basically, people have different workflows when they approach analytics, and Visier is broken up into these sections to try and help with this. So the first one is the topic guidebook. Now, the topic guidebook, it explores an individual topic. Now, I'll go into more information around what the topic is shortly, but once you've chosen your topic, it will prompt you with the right type of information and questions to be able to find the information that you're after. We also have the metric explorer. Basically, you can ask and answer anything of your data, so you can really get into the detail behind what you've got and be able to compare anything that any of your fields against anything else. Dashboards, these are like your standard dashboards that you've probably seen around, where you can actually create a high-level view of an area. And finally is the slideshows. Now, you can think of this as kind of like reports, but it's more like creating a story from your data. So what I want to start with first is the slideshows, as this is the area where most people will spend their time. Slideshows are a great way to take relevant analytics and bring them together to show whoever needs to see them. This could include things like providing a quarterly business review to your directors or your upper management, quickly putting together information to prove a point or something, that you want to show someone and just have the evidence behind you, or even just handle random requests that you get. And a lot of people who work with reports will know that you get a lot of people saying, hey, can you get me this information? This will actually allow you to be able to show that out to people. So basically, slideshows can be saved to replace your regular reports by sending a permanent link out to whoever needs to see the information. So you can see that we can actually share the link to the slideshows. Now, what this means is when you send them out to people, it will allow them to be able to bookmark the slideshow so that you don't need to keep creating and distributing the same slideshows to the same people over and over again. And of course, Visier has security to lock down what people can see. So what this means is you can create one slideshow and send the slideshow to as many people as you want, and all of their security will be applied to it when they look at it. So you don't need to be making lots of different versions of the same report. All right, so here's an example of a slideshow. So as you can see here, I'm just logged into a web browser, nothing more. Didn't need any plugins or anything to get in. It's nice and easy. Visier can create custom dashboards to provide an overview of an area. So the analytics can be drilled down on, and you can view it in different ways. So it's not a static page. So for example, looking at the turnover rate at the top here, we're looking at the headcount change. If we want to look at a timeline, we can simply change what we're looking at and find a timeline. So over the last 4-5 quarters, we can actually see what the turnover rate was for involuntary or voluntary. If we want to drill into more detail, you can simply click on more detail, and it will actually let you look at the individuals who make up those numbers. So it looks like we've got a bit of a lag, so I do apologize. So once you're looking at these people, it actually allows you to find anyone who matches that group of employees who list the organization, and from that point you can get into the details of them. So what this allows you to do is to look at things from a very high level, and when you want to find more detail, you can simply drill into that information quite easily and get the details that you need. Looks like we might have a slight lag, so I'll just go to webinar has a slight lag, so apologies for that. So moving along, so the dashboard, as you can see, can show a lot of different information. Now, we can also look at trends in the data. So from our data, we can actually look at why people left the organization. So this shows for anyone who left the organization, what was their reasoning that they gave. So this can show really quickly that the top 2 reasons why people left were to go to a different company. So this can give you something to actually start to pay attention to figure out, okay, well, why did that happen? Now, if we want to find more information about them, we can also look at the people who left. So you can find the employees who left the organization and find details about them. So you can just look into that detail. Now, we can even dive into the data and find out what some of the common characteristics are behind people leaving. So what this does, okay, so we've got a bit of a lag, I do apologize, with GoToWebinar. Okay, so we've caught up. So basically what we can do here is we can actually look at the common characteristics of people who have left the organization in the last period. And what this shows is that we can see that over half the people who left had 24 to 32 hours training. So this means if your average training was higher than that, then this might be a reason why people are leaving, and it can give you something to target. Now, by finding, Visier can also be predictive. So as we just saw, there are characteristics common to people who are leaving the organization. So this must mean that we can be able to find out people who might be at risk. So what we can do is we can find employees who are still working for the organization who have the common characteristics of people who have been leaving. And we can possibly, identify the potential flight risks and hopefully do something about it just to make sure that we can keep them around. So one of the great things about slideshows is, as you can see, the information that I can show can be very varied and very different, so you can actually add whatever you want. The good thing is it can be viewed either online, via a tablet, so like your iPad, which is great for meetings away from the office. And you can even export it out to PowerPoint and apply it to your own templates automatically from Visier so that you can actually use it in presentations if you need to. As we move through the rest of Visier, anything that you see can be captured and it can be added to a new or existing slideshow. So what I want to jump to next is I'm going to go back into the main Visier product and we're going to have a look at the topic guidebook. Now, the idea of the topic guidebook is to let Visier provide you with commonly asked questions and help guide you to a solution. So firstly, just to explain what I mean by a topic brings together a number of related metrics. For example, rather than having salary, performance, compensation, tenure all individual, you can actually bring them together and we sort of unite them under things like pay equity. And so the idea is that we can get all of these common pieces and put them together. So once we've chosen a topic, Visier lets you understand and analyze the topic rather than picking the multiple metrics and trying to cut across them for analytics and then try and roll them together at the end of the day. So it does all of that work for you. Now, one question I get at this point, whenever I'm doing a demonstration, is what if I don't have the data? It's a very common one because a lot of people don't have all of the data that I got on the screen. Now, this isn't an actual problem within Visier because Visier it degrades gracefully. So what I mean by that is, for example, if you have minimal information on productivity, it will only show you what you've got and it will hide the rest. Now, if you have no information on a topic, so let's say you had nothing on performance management, it can actually hide the entire section and all the rest of the boxes will push up into that space so you won't even know it's missing. Now this is really good for like a staged rollout or if you don't have the information because you can simply add it in down the track, but if you don't have it at the time, you can keep going. You're not going to get stuck with all these grayed out boxes. So we're going to jump in and have a look at one of these sections. So I'm going to look at recruiting effectiveness. So firstly, we come to an overview screen. So this is an overview of the common metrics that you might be interested in. So they're the industry standards that Pete was talking about before. So we can look at, when you're looking at recruitive effectiveness, you might want to be looking at things like how many applicants were screened at different stages. So you can see screened here when they're interviewed and so forth. You might want to see how many have accepted your offer, so what the offer rate is. And even things like what the turnover rate is in the short term. So what's the turnover rate for people who only stayed for less than 3 months? So you can see how good your recruiting is. Now, we can hover over any of these sections and get more detail. So we can hover into these areas and it will pop up and give us more detail of what the percentages are, how it came up with those numbers. So we can actually get a bit more detail than just what's here. And you can do that across any of these different areas and get more info if you need to. Now, if you're looking at this and you're not quite sure what something is, there's little question marks everywhere which you can hover over and get more information. And if you need to look at the online help, you can click on this and it'll open up the online help for you. So the answers are always there in case you need them. Yeah. And it does go through things like how it's calculated and has nice little pretty pictures there of, how the actual formulas work to make sure that you can understand it properly. Now, we also have the detailed view. So this covers things like what the situation is and what are some of the factors that are causing this. So again, looking at the recruitive effectiveness, we can actually start to drill into some detail and find out what's going on. So I might want to look at how the vacancy rate is trending, for example. So what this will do is it actually shows the vacancy rate over the last 4 years across the organization. Now, let's say, for instance, you were looking at this and it all looks nice. The vacancy rate is dropping, but someone had mentioned to you, well, there's an area that has an issue. Now, Visier allows you to not just look at your entire organization as a whole, but actually start to filter that information so you can get more detailed visuals. So, for instance, I could change the organization, the location, the time period. So if I didn't want to look at it right now, I could look at any time. It doesn't have to be years. It can be weeks or quarters or months. Or I can get any field in my data and filter it by that as well. So for instance, if I had heard that the role plant operations was having problems, then I can actually apply a filter, and this will apply across all of Visier to change all of the charts and graphs and metrics and analytics that we've got. You'll also notice the numbers have dropped down, so this is less than what it was before for the number of people we're looking at, and you can see that this is our filter at the top here. Now, looking at the graph that we had before, it looked all good before. The vacancy rate was on a downward trend, which was fantastic. But what we can see here is for the plant operations, it's not quite as good as the rest of the organization. So what this means is if we see a problem, we can start to concentrate on this subsection of the organization and look at the different areas. So we might want to say, okay, well, some of the common questions might be, well, what's the pipeline looking like for recruitment in this area? So we can look at this and say, okay, well, applications are high, everything seems to be going okay. We've got lots of offers that have been extended out. So the pipeline looks pretty healthy. So this probably isn't one of our issues. We can say, okay, well, maybe people aren't accepting the offers once they've been sent out. So we can say, well, what are the main reasons for the decline? So for this role, the plant operators, we can actually see that 2/3 of the people who decline accept an offer elsewhere. So they've accepted another offer in the time. Now, this might lead you to think, well, maybe our processes are too slow and our competitors got in first. But it does give you that little bit of insight of if people are leaving or not accepting the offer, this could be a reason why. We can also look at things like, we've decided that in the short term we need to advertise. We need more people. The vacancy's too high. And we want to drop that. So what we can do is we can say, well, what lead sources are actually effective? So look at our history for this area, because all your different divisions, your roles, they might not all have the same way of communicating out to people who might take these roles. So what this shows us is for the plant operators, third-party job boards and LinkedIn are the way to go. So it gives us this information to say that, we might be using our website and thinking that's the best way, but it's not getting the results that we're after, and this can show that. And if we are looking to recruit more people, well, what are the direct costs? So we can jump in and say, well, basically, what are the costs to actually hire someone into this role? And we can see that compared to last year, it's actually more expensive, sitting at around the $9,500 of cost just to get someone on board, actually hire someone. So this again might make you think, well, maybe we can improve, how our recruitment and onboarding works and try and drive down cost by automating it or using something along those lines. So, excuse me. So as you can see, the topic guidebook tries to provide not only the answers, but also the questions that you should be asking, helping you know what you don't know. So sometimes the standard questions that are out there, the industry standards, aren't what you're after, and sometimes you need something a little bit more specific than the topic guidebook can provide, and this is where the Metric Explorer comes into it. So the Metric Explorer allows you to ask and answer anything of your data. It's great for people who need to create reports, like data analysts, and it provides them with an in-depth view of their data. So the Metric Explorer can allow you to remove dependencies on IT for building and maintaining your reports and allow quicker and easier ad hoc reports. Pretty much you can just make them on the fly. It's nice and easy. Let me just get rid of that filter at the top. For instance, as an example, you might get asked something along the lines of, well, can you please provide upper management with information on gender equality? And the Metric Explorer is going to be your first stop for this. So what we can do is we can say, okay, well, first off, let's have a look at, let's say, the female ratios. So I can start to search for an area to look at, and I might want to look at them across the different compensation levels, so how much they're getting paid. I always like having these in the natural order just because it looks neater. Now, what this does is, as you can see, it was quite easy to grab that information. And we can see that, on average, about 35% of the organisation is female, which means that this is a little bit lopsided. Now, we might be trying to find this a little bit more, specific area than the entire organisation. So what we can do here is we can actually compare the entire organisation against a subset of our data. So, for instance, I can do it against a time period, groups of employees, the different metrics that we saw before. But in this case, I might just choose a different group of employees, maybe look at a small section. So the UK is a small area of my organisation, but that might be what I want to compare against. So I can say compare against the UK, and what it will do is it will actually show the difference between the UK and the overall percentages. And I can obviously change this to make it look like what I want, so I don't really care about this side bit, so I just might put it side by side. And as you can see here, in the green is the UK, which is significantly higher than what the average is across the organisation. Now, as I find this information, I can, if I have to give this to someone, I don't want to tell them, oh, go in here and click this button, click that button. I might want to add this to a slideshow, like what we saw at the start. To add a slideshow, all you need to do is down the bottom, we have a little camera. You can click capture the slide, and you click on the screen, and that will capture that as a brand new slide in your slideshow. And you can choose whether you want to use one of your existing slideshows or one of your previous ones. So as you can see, I've got a lot of different slideshows there. So you can pick the one you want, add a new one if you need to, and then add this information to it. So you can start to build this slideshow. So once you've found your information, you can quickly and easily pass it to whoever needs to see it. So what if we want to, instead of looking at ratios, we actually wanted to compare? So we wanted to look at males versus females. So we can simply just change the way that we look at our data. So I might look at headcounts this time. I want to look at the distribution rather than just a comparison. And what I'll do is, again, I do like this in the natural order because it looks nicer. I can break this up and show what the breakup is of males versus females. So I can put that across the screen like so. And as you can see, we can hover over it to get more information. So we can see in the 100 to 150K bracket, we've got 1,306 males versus 762 females. So this proves the lopsidedness, I guess, of the organisation. Now, this looks bad. It looks a bit imbalanced, I guess, but you don't actually know if it's getting better or worse. So for all we know, it may have been a year ago, it may have been significantly worse than what it is now, and we're getting better, or it might have been better and we're getting worse. So what we can do is, from this point, we can actually start to compare this as well. So, for instance, if we wanted to compare it to the same time last year, we can just simply say, okay, compare it to Q1 in 2013 and show me what the differences are. And what this does is it actually, you can see there's a bit of a grey area under here, which is the old values that you can hover over if you need to. But on the left-hand side, it actually shows what the changes are. And what you can see is the males are in the lighter blue and the females are in the grey colour on the side. And in every single section that we're looking at, over the last year, the number of males has gone up significantly more than the females, except in the bottom one here, where there was a big loss. Well, it's not that big. It's negative 4 females to -1 male. So we lost more females than males, but everywhere else we gained more males than females. So what this shows us is that not only do we have an imbalance, but we're actually going the wrong way. We're making it worse. So we can, again, if we needed to, take a snapshot of this so we can capture the slide and put it to a slideshow and pass this information back to whoever needs to see it. Now, as you can see, the Metric Explorer is a quick and easy way to be able to dive into the details of your data to produce your analytics. So that is a quick overview of Visier Workforce Analytics. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass you back to Pete, and I think we'll be able to answer some questions. So let me just...
Okay, so just wanted to take some questions from the audience. I know that's just a snapshot, a really quick look at what Visier can do. You know, what we've kind of limited in what we can show you in 25 minutes or so. Just to see if we'll take a few questions from the audience. I've got one question already, which is there any plugins required for Visier in the browser? Look, there's no plugins required, just any modern web browser will work with Visier. We should also mention there's a app for the tablet. So there's an iPad app there. So those slideshows that Ben was showing you, they can be, you know, you can see them on a web browser, but you can also view them and interact with those slideshows on an iPad. So they're kind of a perfect thing, especially for the executives where they just need that real high level overview of their workforce data. They can show those on the slideshows, which makes a lot of execs happy. Another question I got coming in is how many sources of data can you grab? And look, you know, one of the biggest issues that people have about trying to getting started with workforce analytics is the quality of their data, the diversity of it in terms of, you know, it's in 10 different systems. Look, what we find and from Visier's experience is that they've gone implemented at customers that have up to 20 different sources for their workforce data. So, you know, what they're doing is each of those systems will send some information, usually in a CSV format, to Visier on a periodic basis. That data is fairly raw, and Visier does all the hard work of transforming and loading that into its application. So that's where the Visier full service comes along. I'll just see if there's any other questions there. Yeah, do you want to read them out, Ben? Because I can't see them on my screen at the moment.
Yes, we've got another question from Wallace Lowe of how do you upload the data?
Okay. So, yep, that's a good question. Do you want to mute yourself, Ben? Yeah, look, that's a good one. So they're actually as CSV raw extracts. There is, for the different types of information, there's a couple of different standard formats there in terms of what columns they need to grab from that. Again, like I said, it's fairly raw, but it is a CSV over an SFTP upload. What Visier does is it allows you also to load historic information as well, because as you saw in Ben's demo, you know, it's great to have that historical records to be able to compare. So typically with Visier, there's usually about a 3-year history that they allow you to load in as well, which is a once-off load, but after that, obviously, it's incremental loads. Usually the standard frequency for that is probably once a month or once a fortnight, just depending on your requirements.
Another one, and I think one of us is supposed to say this and we didn't, so I apologize. Where is the data hosted?
Yes, very good question, Ben, about the hosting. So Visier is a US-based application. The data, unfortunately to probably some people in this audience, it is hosted in the US and in North America somewhere. Is it hosted in Canada or the US? Yeah, it's in North America, which, look, it's a bit of a frustrating thing as a vendor, and I'm sure on the customer side as well, that there's a lot of Australian organisations that do have that issue about where the data is hosted. Unfortunately, with something like Visier, because a lot of their technology stack for this is quite complex, it's quite intensive because a lot of the data you're seeing is stored in memory in their servers. So at the moment, that hosting is all done overseas. Is there any more questions? Yep, we'll take maybe one or two more.
Yep. Okay. So we have been asked. We've kind of answered this one. I'll just make sure. Is Visier real time? No, it takes the loads from your data set. Where's the other one here? Oh, they're all coming in too fast. Is there an evaluation license available? We've got that one from Bill, which at the moment there is not. So basically, I can provide demos for people if they want to see it in more detail. But for giving people an evaluation, we can't do that at the moment. So I do apologise for that. But if you do want a demo, feel free to give me a call. We have, do any existing APIs exist for specific HRIS?
Because the extracts for Visier via CSV, there's no APIs. What we're doing here in Australia, we've already got a couple of customers on the service, and as kind of like what we've done with Org Plus, is we develop some standard extracts around the typical systems. So some of the systems we're already seeing is systems like Alesco, Chris 21, those sort of systems that we already have experience in. So as that becomes more familiar, but as we said before, because there tends to be multiple data sources, so recruitment systems are usually, a really good source of some of the information. Those extracts will just need to be provided either by the vendor or your own extracts out of those systems. We've got time for one more question, Ben.
All right, so last question here is we got this from Marcus asking, 4 to 6 weeks seems very fast. Does this include work needed to define internal business rules and filtering options?
Look, that 4 to 6 weeks, so internal, I'm not quite sure what you mean by internal business rules, but in terms of filtering options, what a lot of the work is in that 4 to 6 weeks is massaging that raw data you provide for Visier to do the transformations into their standard metrics and things like that. So you'll see there was some dimensional type information about how you want to cut up the organization. So when Ben showed some of the filters around UK, Canada, and location type things. So, and we've got some standard data sheets we can send out to people. I'm showing a slide now, the resources slide online, where you can see some of this, but we've got some standard data sheets that go into that setup process in a lot more detail and explains some of the information. Also with the security, it talks about how you can link into your internal security via SEML and other sort of industry standard security. So if anyone's interested in some more detail, understandable with a cloud-based application, how do these things technically, how they're possible, we can definitely provide you with some of that information after the webinar. There's a lot of information. Visier just updated their resources section on their website, so there's plenty of information on there, including deep dives into the product in terms of videos. So if anyone really wants to see more of the application, there's a whole bunch of on-demand webinars located in there. We're recording this webinar, so we'll be posting that up onto our Navigo blog as well. So we've run out of time, but thank you very much for tuning in, and I hope you got something out of today's webinar. This is part of a series on workforce analytics and workforce planning that we're doing here at Navigo. So we'll be keeping in touch with everyone, letting you know when the next webinars are and those topics. And I'd like to thank you. Thanks, Ben, for your time today. And I hope everyone has an awesome day. Thanks, everyone. Bye.